Right, let's dive into a story that honestly sounds like it was ripped straight from a Hollywood thriller. You've got a secret identity, thousands of victims, and a scandal so huge it brought an entire city to a standstill. This is the wild, true story of the man everyone knew as Sister Hong. You know, it all boils down to a question that we probably should ask ourselves every single day. Who are you really talking to on the internet? Because in this case, the answer wasn't just surprising, it was a secret that literally blew a city wide open. So how did this whole thing kick off? Well, it wasn't some quiet rumor. Nope. This was a full-on digital explosion. It all started when this massive cache of explicit videos just appeared online. And what was weird was they were all filmed from the very same angle, in what looked like a pretty normal apartment in the Chinese city of Nanjing. And things escalated so fast, it's kind of hard to believe. I mean, at first, people just saw this weird collection of videos popping up. You know, same camera, same person, but a different guy in every single clip. But in a city of 10 million people, yeah, it didn't take long for people to start recognizing faces. And that's when the panic just spread like wildfire. Just a few days later, on July 5th, the police raid the apartment, and the arrest they make, well, nobody saw it coming. See, when the police finally made that arrest, what they found was even more shocking than the videos themselves. The person at the very heart of this scandal, well, she wasn't who everyone thought she was, at all. In fact, she wasn't a she.
I mean, the difference between the persona and the reality is just staggering. Online, he was Sister Hong, this gentle, compassionate widow who was just looking for a little companionship. But in reality, the police found Joe, a 38-year-old man. He had meticulously built this fake identity using wigs, makeup, even silicone breast forms, all while secretly filming every single encounter.
And when they searched his apartment, they realized just how big this whole operation was. We're talking multiple wigs, entire kits of makeup, the silicone breasts, but then they found 6 separate cell phones just to manage all his contacts. And maybe the most chilling part? A notebook. And it was filled with the names of hundreds and hundreds of men. This wasn't something he just decided to do one day. This was a calculated, long-term operation. Yeah, this was anything but random. Over 3 years, Joe had perfected a very specific 5-step method. The guy had a system, down to a science. Okay, so here's how it worked. First, he'd create the Sister Hong persona online. You know, this harmless, lonely widow. Then he'd build trust, just chatting, getting emotional. But here's the absolute genius, and I mean that in a sinister way, part of his plan, the small gift tactic. See, he never asked for money. That would have been a huge red flag. Instead, he'd say something like, "Oh, could you just bring a little cooking oil or maybe some fruit?" It made the whole thing feel normal, not like a transaction. So once they got there, he was in total control. He'd rush things, keep his clothes on to hide his body, and the whole time, high-def, hidden cameras were rolling, making absolutely sure the victims' faces were perfectly clear. Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question, right? How? How on earth did over 1,600 men fall for this? Well, the answer takes us into some really fascinating and frankly kind of disturbing human psychology. Just let that number sink in for a second. 1,600 plus over 3 years. Do the math. That's more than one man walking through his apartment door every single day. We're not talking about a small-time scam here. This was deception on an industrial scale. And what's really wild is how the victims reacted. I mean, it was completely all over the place. You had guys who left, totally oblivious, with no idea they'd just been with a man. Then you had others who were suspicious, they sensed something was off, but they just went along with it. A few guys actually confronted Sister Hong, but he'd either threaten them or just talk them down. And this is the craziest part, some guys apparently knew the truth and became regulars. They kept coming back. It got so crazy that a phrase, which basically translates to, well, since we're here anyway, went totally viral in China to describe this whole mess. And it just perfectly captures that mindset, right? That mix of, well, I came all this way, that sunk cost fallacy, and just a powerful unwillingness to face a super awkward, totally unbelievable situation head on. I mean, the psychology here is just baffling. Get this. One victim straight up asked him, "Are you a man or a woman?" And what does Joe do? He threatens to call the cops on the victim for harassing him. And the most incredible part? Even with all those alarm bells ringing, the guy stayed. So the fallout from this, it wasn't just about the people involved. It was societal. The leak of these 1,600 videos didn't just cause ripples. It sent a tsunami of paranoia and absolute devastation across the entire city of Nanjing. People started calling the collection of videos the infidelity report card for the whole city. Just imagine that. Women all across Nanjing, glued to their screens, frantically scrolling through this horrifying footage, terrified they were going to see their husband, their boyfriend, their brother, even their coworkers. And the domino effect was just catastrophic. You had families being completely torn apart. You had professionals. We're talking teachers, government officials. Their careers were just obliterated overnight. A thick fog of paranoia just settled over the whole community. And of course, the victims themselves were left dealing with trauma, public humiliation, and a really scary health risk. When you put the human cost into perspective, it's just staggering. So you have a city of 10 million people. You have over 1,600 men filmed. But the number that's truly terrifying is the health one. According to reports, Joe rarely used protection, and an early estimate suggested that something like 80% of the men they could track down had contracted an STD. This wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a legitimate public health crisis. Okay, so even after the arrest, after all the lives that were ruined, one huge question just hangs in the air. Why? I mean, what on earth motivates a person to pull off such a risky, complicated, and destructive con for 3 straight years? Now, the easy answer is money, right? But it just doesn't really add up. The value of those little gifts, plus what he made from selling some videos, around $35,000, it just doesn't seem worth the massive effort and the constant daily risk of getting caught. That's why experts think the real motive was something way deeper, something psychological. So what was really driving him? Was it just a deep-seated need for power and control? Maybe it was an ego trip, getting one over on men he saw as powerful or attractive, the doctors, the businessmen, all the guys he could fool and dominate. Or, and this is a chilling thought, maybe the act of deception itself was the point. Maybe that's what he got off on. And that's really the question that leaves you thinking, isn't it? Was this all just a really bizarre plan to make a little cash? Or was it a twisted psychological game of power, ego, and control? Or was the real motivation something much, much darker? That's an answer that might be locked away forever in the mind of the man who called himself Sister Hong.
别墅里面唱 K， 水池里面饮龙鱼。我送阿硕茶具，他研磨下笔，直接给我4个字算大展宏图，大肆亲手提笔字，大展。